How to work with a tool called For All Rubrics, which is a way to quickly develop rubrics for your class and do some grading right on your iPad. The first thing that you'll want to do when you're making For All Rubrics is to develop a form. Here I developed a form with just 3 fields in it: student ID, first and last name, so that I can gather information from my students. I'm going to make a form that does that basic stuff, and then I am going to capture by going to View Live Form and then capturing the URL and sending it to my class. That's step 1. When that's done, you're going to get the results in a spreadsheet. Here I'm using the sample roster that's generated from For All Rubrics, but it would be the same sort of principle here. We've got the student ID, their first and last name. The rest of the information is optional, but you've also captured their email address if you did the rubrics properly here, and you will have that in your rubrics or your class lists then. The next step is to go to For All Rubrics and log into the site. I'm logged in here. I'm going under admin and I'm going to manage students, and I'm going to click on import roster, and you can find your spreadsheet that you would have downloaded from Google Sheets that will allow you to import your class. So I'm going to choose a file. Hopefully it's going to be in my downloads here, sample roster. It's in CSV format. And then I'm going to click import. So now I have 2 students that are already imported into my rubrics, so that I can work with and then design rubrics, which will be the next step in this process. So the next thing we're going to do is design a rubric in For All Rubrics. We're going to click on the Design tab to create that. There are many choices here. You can choose from a badge, a checklist, a rubric, and the one that we're going to be working with almost exclusively for this video is working with a rubric, but you could investigate checklists as well. It would be a quick way to check things that are going on in your class. It's very easy to design a rubric here. Basically, it's a fill-in-the-blank proposition. So for the purposes of this, we're going to use beginning, developing, accomplished, and exemplary levels of performance in 4 different areas. You can add to those areas as you want to, and change the names for the categories as well. But basically what we're going to do now is sort of fill in the blank with the details for a rubric, and once we're done with that, we'll be able to use that in For All Rubrics. Our choices are students sitting in straight, even rows, objective on the board, teacher is presenting information in class, and class is taking notes. What we would use as an example and say a drop-in visit to a classroom. I'm going to enter some information here about students taking Cornell notes as a choice here. This is what we enter into this category. And continue to fill in the blanks until your rubric is complete. So now I'm going to show why For All Rubrics is a really nice tool to use in the classroom. I'm doing this on my computer, but you can do the same thing on an iPad. It's browser-based, so it's very easy to work with. I'm going to click under Sample Rubric and pick from a different rubric to work with, the Observer tab 3.0 rubric that we just set up. I am going to click on Johnny, this teacher, and I'm going to grade that teacher's performance as I sit in the back of his classroom. Are the students seated in straight, even rows? I think he's got both straight and even rows. I think the objective is on the board but may not be highlighted in class. The teacher is presenting information to class. I hear a lot of verbal droning, so I'm going with that. The class is taking notes, but they aren't using Cornell notes, so I'm going with that. I'm clicking Done, and that rubric is already saved then for that student. So the last thing I'm going to show you is how to look at the data. I've just did the rubric for 2 different students in my class. I can browse the results, look at them, and I can email the results or download them to my computer. That becomes a comma-separated file for me to look at, which could be imported into Google Apps or some other use, but in the end you can email them or keep this tab open and just enter that directly into your gradebook. It's an excellent way to do on-the-spot assessments with your kids with your iPad in class.